the time has come. We're in my computer, TV room, whatever. I'm in front of my laptop. I have everything set up. I will screen record and we will rank. By we I mean me, I will rank the books I read in 2022. I have not thought about this at all. Let's get into it. I'm now recording though, so let's get started. Books I read in 2022 tier list. For fun, I'll link this in the description, but it's very specific to the 44 books that I read, obviously. Let's go through the tier labels and categories that I made. I had to list them first and make them in a Word document here. So I have this for a guide, but also these were my initial thoughts when I made this. The labels here that I decided to make are actually plot points or events that happen in specific books. Or out of the 6 here, 2 of them are actually spoilery in terms of events that happen, but also kind of not that big of a deal, in my opinion. I was thinking about there's one I was thinking about changing, but it's too good to not use, and I also already came up with it, so I don't want to change it. Yeah, so these are all like plot points and events that happen in various books that I read, and I'm not going to tell you which book the tier is. There's a few here that you're probably going to be able to guess if you keep up with what I've been reading, but I'll wait till I get to those books in particular and then tell you that tier plot is from that book. So at the bottom, in the Word document, it's backwards. So at the bottom of the actual tier, we have ambiguously being replaced or altered against your will. Stunned in a bad way. The lowest of the low. Run. Get out. Go. Because, like, wouldn't that be the worst? That is the lowest of the low. Ambiguously. I had to add ambiguously there because, like, that's the way it is. Being replaced or altered against your will. Lowest of the low. Next is literal shit in your museum exhibit. Kind of not good, but well written. Everyone's trash is another's treasure. Good, but bad. I really this was the first one that I thought of. I was like, well, this happens in this book. It's shit in a museum exhibit. And I feel like that actually works really well for categorizing things, because first you have just like the way that people interpret art. But then also, if you have like a pile of shit next to a glorious piece of art, like what a mix. What a mix that is. You have this work that someone, took the time to make, and they're talented and it's beautiful, and you can have your own interpretation of it, but then there is also like actual feces. And that's disgusting. Yeah. So there's that one. Next is accidentally marrying your brother. Stunned, but in a speechless way. Instead of stunned in a bad way, stunned in a speechless way. Wild. Immoral, but not the worst. Odd. Mixed feelings. So ultimately, this is just like the mixed feelings bag. Even though that does seem kind of similar to the literal shit in your museum exhibit, I feel like the immoral but not the worst kind of differentiates that a little bit more. Saving your best friend from a demon. Now we're getting to like obviously the better things here, because that would be great. That is a good thing, saving your best friend from a demon. That's a lot to say. Let's fucking go. Mostly a good time, but a bit of a bad time. Going through it, but worth it. Maybe campy. Pretty funny. This is the obvious book that's probably going to go here, what this plot point is from. And I thought that it would also reflect the campy and kind of funny books that I did enjoy, but aren't like as heartfelt, or I'm not as passionate about. Next is having a fairy godmother, because I needed a little bit of something more between you know, I needed something between that previous one and the top one. So having a fairy godmother, so sweet, so cute, so helpful, magic, we love it. Sparkles. Sparkles. Namely, there's one book in particular that I was like thinking about for this, but I don't even know if I'm going to put that one here. So we'll see. And then lastly, the superior tier, the top tier. Being resurrected after being beheaded, or vampirically flying into the sun but slowly healing because you're old and powerful and probably because you drank Lestat's Jesus blood. Yay. However, I can't fit that whole thing into the tier. So it says vampirically flying into the sun but healing BC because you're old and powerful. The best of the best, the most powerful, the most impact, the most sentimental attachment for whatever reason. So these are my tiers. Obviously, you can tell what book that one's from, probably. Again, if you keep up with what I am reading. It's too bad I couldn't. That's a key, because I really do think just stats. Lestat's Jesus blood had a lot to do with not just turning to literal ash. Just your skin being torched, crumbling as you're falling in the atmosphere, and then your ashes just wisping away in the wind as you're falling. I guess it wouldn't go this way. It would probably go this way. Yes, okay. Those are my tiers. And then the books here are just listed alphabetically because that's how they were arranged in the folder that I had them in. So I actually think that's probably better than going through them chronologically, because then I am not thinking about them in the same like way that I was like throughout the year, if that makes sense. So first we have A Line to Kill by Anthony Horowitz, which is the third book in the Hawthorne and Horowitz detective series. This one, I'm not going to go into premise, I'm just thoughts here, okay? This one, well, okay. Thoughts about the premise, yes, but I'm not going to give like a synopsis of the books before talking about them. This one had to do with a book event, like a literary event happening, which I thought was really cool because of the like meta way that the main character, that was really cute. Okay. The main character is Anthony Horowitz, who's the author, so it has like this meta aspect to it, which is definitely one of the biggest draws to the series and like one of the most enjoyable things. And so to go more into like Anthony's world, literary world, is really nice. However, I was expecting like to learn a little bit more. We do learn a little bit more from about Detective Hawthorne, but I wanted more. I do think we're finally going to get that with the fourth book, which is now out, I'm pretty sure. I got the audiobook of it. I've been listening to these on audiobook. I don't have any of them physically. This series, I still think I like the first one the best. It's hard to think of this on its own because it is in a series, and I think I liked the first one better, and I liked certain parts of the second one better because we were learning more about like, oh, what are some things from Detective Hawthorne's past that may be influencing things that are happening now. And this definitely deals with that a bit, but again, I wanted it to be like kind of a bigger picture when this was still very much like a murder mystery book. So this one I'm gonna put in the saving your best friend from a demon, I think. Even though it does definitely have some sad moments, that's for sure. A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This one, see, this is the one that I was thinking about putting in the having a fairy godmother sort of tier, but especially because that actually kind of works with the way that Ram Dass and even the old man, does it say the old man? Mr. Carrisford? Is that the neighbor? Sure. But anyway, the neighbor and Ram Dass end up kind of being like a fairy godfathers to Sarah when she's in the attic, and they totally like rearrange her room. They give her like an actual bed and like clothing and food and, you know, things for survival also. So that works for the having a fairy godmother, but it was just so good. So I'm torn. But it was it's also just so enjoyable. Okay, I think I'm gonna put it in the having a fairy godmother, but it's probably gonna stay at the top. I can move it later if I want to. Ooh, And the Trees Crept In by Don Kurtagich. This one is one that I listened to on audiobook and I read physically, and the audiobook was fantastic. I don't know whether to I really do think the audiobook added so much to the experience. Though, I do think it was kind of lacking. I'll admit, I didn't really enjoy the actual premise. I very much more so enjoyed the style that it was written in, and the twists that it was taking, and just there was so much intrigue with what was happening, and I felt like it was layered, but ultimately, when you take a step back and you see the whole picture, it doesn't seem that much. It just, when you're in it, it feels like so much is happening, if you get what I'm saying. I feel like I'm shrinking. I think I'm losing cushion in my chair. I also didn't particularly like the main character, or really any of the characters. They were frustrating, but it is a horror novel, so I guess that kind of makes sense because, characters in horror movies, and I haven't read horror a lot, but usually they make not so great decisions. What are we doing here? It's very windy outside too, by the way. Okay, yeah. We're gonna put this at the top of saving your best friend from a demon, just because I do think that the plot itself lacked a bit, and I didn't particularly love the characters, so it really was just these sort of mysteries that was making me keep going. That doesn't make sense. That was making me continue. I mean, I would have continued anyway, but that was the most intriguing and interesting part. Besides the way that everything was set up, there are different sort of fonts that are used to show a different narrator in a way, whose part that was, and various things, without getting too much into it. Being there, this one is honestly gonna go in Accidentally Marrying Your Brother. This was really enjoyable, but I actually think Accidentally Marrying Your Brother works really well for things that happen in this book. There's a scene, it's taken out of the movie a little bit, or it's condensed. It continues in the book. There's a scene where Chance is at a party, a get-together with a lot of government officials, other important people, rich people, and he walks away for a moment, and this guy starts talking to him, and Chance is a character that just has people are just attracted to him for some reason, and somehow he's very agreeable to everyone because everyone just keeps projecting onto him in a way. And so there's a man who starts talking to him and flirting with him, and then he's hey, do you want to go upstairs? And so then he's yeah, because all Chance wants to do is watch TV. All he wants to do is watch TV. That's his whole life. And this guy wants to have sex with him for sure. That's what he's doing. And all that Chance keeps saying though is that I like to watch. He keeps saying that. And so that's what happens a couple of times in the book, including with this man who just sprawls himself out on the hotel bed and pleasures himself, and Chance has no idea what's happening. He has no context. He just thinks that there's something wrong, and then he just leaves after the guy finishes. And I'm sure the guy thought that it was a great time, even though Chance just stood there. But that's the kind of thing. It's so strange and so odd, but it was a very enjoyable book still. So this is not necessarily, this is more in terms of ranking it in its category rather than best to worst. You know what I mean? Burnt Offerings We're gonna go with, yeah, literal shit in your museum exhibit. This is something that maybe is sort of a timing situation because I did end up watching the film adaptation and I think I liked that more. I also listened to this on audiobook, so it could be like a narration thing where I wasn't as into the narration, or I just would have gotten a lot more out of it by reading it physically only. I don't have it physically. I haven't seen it physically. I just was listening to the audiobook. That was a weird way. I haven't seen it physically. That was a weird way of putting that I don't even own the book and I don't have the book in any way. A physical copy, an e-copy, none of that. I feel like this is one of those stories, though, that makes an impact afterwards, which, in comparison to another book that I read this year that was very much like that, this is much lower. That other book I thought was like mid. At first it was like good. I wanted a little bit more from it, but then I kept thinking about it. And this is sort of the same situation where it has the potential of having that impact at the end after you finished it and after you keep thinking about it. But I just didn't get that with this. So this is very much like open to your own interpretation and open to your experience with it. I do think that it's very interesting, and I don't know, see, I want to almost say like I'd like to revisit it at some point, but I also think there's like so little to it that I'm not exactly sure if that would necessarily be beneficial. Then we have Cinderella, and this has to go in having a fairy godmother because that's this is the book that has having a fairy godmother. There we go. There's our first source for the tier labels here. I'm also going to put this here not only for the story, but also for the impact it's made in fairy tales, in history. This is specifically the one by Charles Perrault, and also this is illustrated by Camille Rose Garcia. And so this is not only ranking the story, but also the illustrations, and they're this like pastel Tim Burton-esque style. That's how I would describe them. Pastel fashion, because I really do feel like, some of the dresses that like the characters wear, like I want to see that on a real person. Oh my god, someone should do that. Oh my god, that would be so... Someone should do that. I watch a number of, like, fashion and costuming people. I'm gonna suggest that to someone. But that means No, you could find stills online, I'm pretty sure. Someone should do that, okay? I'm giving someone that idea right now. Then we have Fangs. This one's tricky because it's a graphic novel. Not a lot happens. It is cute. So, like, technically it should go in having a fairy godmother. It's just this couple, this vampire and this werewolf, they meet and they become a couple, and it's just, like, the random things that happen in their relationship. And most of it is maybe just, like, 1 to 4 pages of a thing happening. It could be them, like, having breakfast on one page, and then on the second page, he opens the blinds a little bit and lets in too much sunlight, and she's like, because she's a vampire. But it doesn't have much depth, basically. And I almost wish that it was like a fuller thing. A fuller thing. Such good description. But having a fairy godmother, but like but then I'm like comparing it now to like, and the trees crept in. No, we're going categorical. Because I didn't want it to just like reflect like my star ratings, essentially. All right, Frostbite. Okay, so this is the second book in the Vampire Academy series, and all 3 books kind of blend in my mind. Should I look up like a synopsis? Or maybe I should look at my Goodreads really quickly. But also Frostbite, Vampire Academy Wiki. Fan page. Here we go. Frostbite. Here we go. Oh, wait. I forgot they did make graphic novels of the of the series. My computer is like, there's too much going on. I can hear it start to get louder. Plot. Let me read this really quickly. Okay, yeah, this is the one where they have the Dampiers are being tested. Oh, that was so good, though. Oh, yeah, the ski trip. Oh, and then we meet Adrian. But we don't learn more about Adrian until the next book. I mean, should I just put all of Vampire Academy in the top? I gave all of them a 4 out of 5. What? Review to come. I do that so often. It's so bad. I say review to come and then I don't do it. But I am eventually, when I finish the series, going to upload a vlog. Because after I finished each book, I talked about them in a video. So, I talked about them in a video. I recorded me talking about them. So, honestly, I need to skip it for now. We're going to come back to Vampire Academy. Maybe I should think about it all together. Heartstopper. Okay, Heartstopper, we have all these. I am going to differentiate a little because 2 and 4 are my favorites. And Heartstopper is easily like a standout thing from last year. So I'm going to put 1 and 3 and Having a Fairy Godmother. I think I'm going to put it like this. First one has to go up to the top more because it's the beginning and I love beginnings. I think 2 is my favorite, perhaps. Is it 2 or 4? These 2 are my favorites because, well, I think more so they deal with Nick a little bit more. And I like 2 because it deals more with, like, him coming to terms, so to speak, with his sexuality and sharing it with other people. And then the 4th has a little bit more to do with, like, them being together and also dealing with Nick's family. That was, like, just a little bit more drama that I liked, even though that kind of sounds bad, I feel like. Because so often in, like, queer stories, you have, like, family drama. But in real life, that actually sucks when families are not open and maybe do even worse things. So, I think 2 and then 4. That's what I'm going with right now. Loteria, this one is going to go in accident. See, I feel like I have a little bit of a disadvantage here because I don't know Spanish, and there were parts, I listened to this on audiobook, there were parts where she just started speaking Spanish, the narrator, and I was like, I have no idea what she's saying, and I don't think that they were repeated in English. So, she would say a couple of sentences, and then it would just continue, and I'd be like, what? And I don't have the words physically, so I couldn't look up a translation. I maybe could have tried spelling things, but I'm not sure. There was also kind of like some weird stuff happening. Yeah, this is the tier to put it in. Just it's told from a child's point of view, and so you get her interpretation of things, and she's very like headstrong. I think also this is sort of like a difference of me being different from the main character and not, I wouldn't have made the same decisions that she did. She was really also like idolizing her dad, it seemed like, even though her dad was like not a great person, and she even knew that and she like recognized it, but she put family above other things. And so when her dad and when members of her family were in danger, she still protected them. That sounds weird to say because I just said that she's a child, but that's what happens. I don't actually know how old she is. I would say like she's a preteen, maybe even a little younger than that. I think she's younger than that. And there are some scenes where she is like saying things or learning things that are more adult, and that was like a little strange. When like there's like this older guy, he wants her to do something to him, and she says no, but then he is still like doing things. So that wasn't great either. That was maybe not the best example, but that's what I thought of she learned some swear words very quickly, and then like she kept saying them, but then also the way that she was explaining it to, like, it was almost as if they didn't have any meaning, but she was saying them so like powerfully, as if she really wanted them to have like an impact, and she knew other people use them for an impact. I also think I listened to this like in a couple of nights, just when I was like baking. I was making bagels for my mom. I think I might have listened to the whole thing, actually, in that one night, because it's only like 4 hours, I think. It's very short. Love by Elizabeth von Arnim. This is really one of these. Saving your best friend from a demon or accidentally marrying your brother. I'm gonna go low, saving your best friend from a demon, because I did like the social commentary in this and the parallels, because the main character, I don't remember names right now, but the main character meets Charles. Wow, don't remember the main character's name, but I remember Charles, I'm pretty sure. And the main character meets this young man. He doesn't realize that she's actually much older than he is, but he is head over heels. They keep meeting each other and seeing each other at the opera, and they keep going to the same opera, so it's definitely something that they like have in common, is like this one show that they both keep seeing. And he's only ever like seen her in dim light, and he like won't believe her, that she's like trying to, she's like, I have a daughter who's like the same age as you, if not older, or something like that. And he's like, what are you talking about? And then he, like, does see her, and he's, like, kind of taken aback for a moment, because he truly did not believe her for whatever reason. But he was so madly in love that he just didn't care, and professed his love to her, and they end up marrying. But her son-in-law has a really big issue with this because of the age difference, because he's younger and sort of carefree, and she is a widow and is more reserved, and got married like really young as well, and has a daughter, and is like an upstanding citizen, you know, but also kind of not a recluse, but she doesn't go out like all that much. She initiates enough in like society where like people aren't making up bad rumors about her, but that does end up kind of starting when she gets in this relationship, and then after she gets married, some of the people in the town kind of like shy away from her and don't want to be associated with her. But in particular, yeah, her son-in-law, he's a priest, actually, I'm pretty sure, or he works at the church. I think he's a priest. Yeah, he's a priest. He does sermons, and his sermons are talked about sometimes. And he has a really big problem with this because of the age difference, and because of like them being quite different. It's an opposites attract kind of story in a way. But he is like older than she is. The son-in-law is older than the mom, and married to her daughter. And the daughter was great, because she kept pointing these things out. He was being so judgmental about like the particular relationship between the mom and Charles, or whatever. I'm pretty sure his name was Charles. And those things also happen to reflect his own relationship. So I like that sort of like social commentary, and like look at double standards in a way. And I did like the relationships, like the relationships that were a part of this, but at the same time, I think I went into it a little bit more thinking that it was very much going to be like a love story. I mean, it's called Love. I thought it was very much going to focus on this older woman and younger man kind of scenario, and I was into that. I was into that before I realized like there's a much sort of there's more like broader stories involved. I feel like my articulation is kind of lacking, so I apologize for that. Also, I don't remember if I mentioned, but this room is kind of echoey, so I apologize for that as well, if it is a little too much. Okay, next is Marilyn and Me by Lawrence Schiller. This one has to go at the very bottom of literal shit in your museum exhibit, because I do like the glimpse that we got at Marilyn on set of Something's Gotta Give, which was her last film that she was making. It's unfinished because she died. So I like this glimpse into her life. The photos are gorgeous, but it is technically, the subtitle of it is A Photographer's Memoir. So it is also about Lawrence Schiller. And thankfully, I feel like he treads that very lightly. It really isn't that much about him. Like, it is. He includes, like, personal things here and there, but I still feel like I don't really know that much about him other than, like, how his family life was going, and how his financial and, like, career success was going at this time. You don't get a lot of, like, deep moments from him, but it definitely has to go at the bottom, towards the bottom at least, because he was having conversations with Marilyn about her being exploited. She was literally complaining to him and kind of venting to him how things are for her in Hollywood, in, you know, this is also like after she tried to leave and came back and tried to make her own production company and, you know, wanted to be taken seriously, and it still wasn't really she wasn't being met in that way, even though she was trying to prove herself and felt like she was with the work that she was doing at that time and in creating a company. So she was like literally talking about exploitation, and he was interpreting it in that way. Yet when he found out about this nude scene, and he was like one of 2 photographers who was on set during the production, he had to be there. He was like, all right, she's gonna be nude, let's go, I'm here to take photographs of Marilyn Monroe in the nude. And then he like goes into this deal with the other photographer. He's like, these are gonna be worth something, we've gotta team up on this, you know. And he makes bank, and he gets his photographs in magazines or whatever he sold it to. And I'm just like, she literally was just complaining to you. You literally, I mean, granted, it is maybe like, in hindsight, he was like interpreting it that way and like realized that he was doing this. Maybe he did realize that he was doing the same thing. Oh, sorry, my Discord's going off. So maybe in that moment, it was like kind of going over his head, and he was like too caught up in himself and in his work to like fully register what Marilyn was saying and recognize the way that she was being treated. That's just, I didn't even write this book because I didn't like the way that made me feel, and it bothered me. But then we have, on the opposite spectrum, Marilyn in Manhattan by Elizabeth Winder. This one is, am I gonna put it at the top? Because this is definitely a standout book of the year. Yes. Ooh. Would it go higher? No, I don't think, I don't know. It's too different to like actually rank within the tier itself. So I'm just going to put it here at the end. You can tell that this was written by someone who cares about Marilyn, who like actually has taken time to get to know her as best as she can. Granted, every single nonfiction book out there is biased to some degree. It doesn't matter. I can't get into it, but like, it's going to be biased no matter what. Everything has biases, but I really liked the focus here. I liked the exploration of, because it is her summer 1955. I always get this wrong. Is it 55? Yeah, I like the focus of this being the 1 year in Marilyn's life, 1955, when she was in Manhattan, trying to distance herself from Hollywood and show that she is worth more than she was getting, and worth more than Hollywood was trying to make her. And so she was learning at the actor's studio, studying at the actor's studio, and trying to make a name for herself there and take that back to Hollywood if she decided that she was for sure going to go back. She was trying to negotiate with Fox, and she wanted to make her own company. And I think that this helped me to learn a lot more about other players like in her life. Beforehand, I didn't really know that much about Milton Green, and there were other books that had mentioned him like briefly, and to be honest, I kind of like had a negative impression of him. But my opinion totally changed after reading this. It helped me to appreciate like other people in her life a lot and helped me to learn about them. Also, just like all the literary references as well, I really appreciated. I made a list as I was reading this book. I have a list on my phone, and I think a video that I'll do in the future is like reading the books that Marilyn Monroe loved and like favorites of hers. Yeah, this is one of the best nonfiction that I've read that pertains to Marilyn Monroe. Okay. Then we have Moll Flanders. This one needs to go at the top of this tier, and it's accidentally marrying your brother. Spoiler for Moll Flanders, she accidentally marries her brother. Also, I love this image, the artwork that the Barnes & Noble Classic uses. This is also, by the way, the editions that I actually own for the most part, except for like The Pit and the Pendulum. That's like I just read that story, so I just chose a random image for the cover when I have like a bind up of Edgar Allan Poe stories, and I think that's the only thing here that is actually different. Yeah. But there's a woman here and she's like kind of lifting her skirt at a time where like showing ankles was too much. And then there's like a man in the background like peeking around the corner at her. And I think it's fitting. However, I kind of wish there was like more of that in like a weird way. This started off so strong. I was like really into it, learning about Moll when she was like a teenager. She was like working as a maid in this, nice house with established people. And the family was like established, and two of the sons were like totally into her. They were both like about to risk it all for her. Particularly one brother was like very much being true about that, and the other brother was kind of just like flirting his way into her skirt and her undergarments, which happened. And then I just feel like it just kept going downhill in a way, but then every once in a while there was some like very interesting thing and like crazy thing that happened, particularly when she married this one guy. She met this guy, they had a connection, they marry, and something happens, like literally so goddamn much happens in this book. So much. It's like 300 pages and you're following her life, and it also just fluctuates so much. Some of it will be like a page or maybe even a paragraph, and then others she like really drags out into like multiple, maybe like a whole chapter. I don't know. The pacing was very off in that way. She was like trying to get in every detail. I say she because like it's narrated by her. She's telling her story even though it's written by a man. Anyway, she falls in love. They both like mutually love each other. There's no like scheming involved because she like schemes a lot. There's no ulterior motive for either one of them. But something happens with him, shenanigans ensues, and he's got to flee the country. He has to leave and move to America where he has, right? I'm not mixing up two guys, am I? He is the one, he has to flee the country. I hope I'm not like confounding that two characters together. Because there are multiple, I can't even remember people's names anymore because there's like so many different like love interests. I use that. There's a spectrum of love interests, actual love interests, and like people that she's just using in a way, or maybe that are trying to, something else is happening other than like them actually being together and being in love. So he has to leave. He's moving to America where he already has a house with his mother. And so they go. He and Moll start a family, and then one day Moll is like speaking to the mom, truly the mom, and the mom's telling her story, and Moll is like, that sounds really familiar. This is suspicious. And then other details of the mom's story just start adding up, and Moll is like, oh shit, this is my mother. oh no, this means I've married my brother. So accidentally marrying your brother. So it has to go in this tier. It also just makes sense because there's just so much that happens. Some of it's like fun, some of it is wild, some of it's fun and wild, some of it is kind of boring. It took me a little too long to finish this, but I wanted to finish it. And I ended up finishing it through listening to an audiobook along with physically reading. Truly was not expecting that. Truly. That moment where the mother's telling her story. It's not even the mom telling her story. It's Maul being like, and she was explaining things. I mean, I'm very much condensing and paraphrasing here, but she was explaining things, and I was suddenly realizing that she had the same backstory as my own mother. Oh, goodness gracious. And I'm pretty sure she, like, keeps it a secret from, like, everyone, and then she eventually, like, tells the mom, and they keep it a secret for a bit. Oh, boy. Goodness gracious. And I also think, like, it ends up being, like, the husband/brother. I think it ends up being his downfall. And then also somehow it gets out, because later she goes back to that town when she's older, and the townspeople are like, oh yeah, she married her brother. Like, he married his sister. So I don't know how that got out exactly, but okay. Alright, next is my best friend's exorcism. Obviously, this is saving your best friend from a demon, because it's called my best friend's exorcism. So it has to go here, because it also is, like, campy and fun, and a good time, but also kind of a bit of bad time. The most memorable scene, okay, you guys. Sorry, I'm, like, also trying to figure out where exactly I want to put this. Yeah, at the top. My favorite scene in this is when... This is definitely spoilery, but I'm very curious if anyone watched the adaptation of this. Like, what did you think? Because I thought it was so bad. And I did have kind of, like, higher expectations because it would make a great movie. But I don't think it was handled the right way. I don't think the people behind it, like, cared as much. It also almost felt, like, too modern in a way, even though it takes place in the 80s. So that was, like, strange. Not enough, like, grimy grittiness either. Like, the characters are actually awful in this, and they were not awful enough in the movie, I feel like. So my favorite scene, okay, the spoilery thing here. My favorite scene is when, oh my god, names. Who else struggles with character names? Exorcism. I wonder what the rating is. 5.3. That's a little too high if you ask me. Although, this girl, the main, Gretchen, Maya Miller, she did a good job. So, Abby is visiting Margaret, and Margaret has kind of been, you know, tricked and lured into drinking these things that she thinks are protein shakes, or like weight loss shakes. There we go. Weight loss shakes. And instead they are, they're tapeworm eggs that she's just been fucking downing. She's been having, like, multiple a day, and it's all she's having. So, eventually, she stops, like, showing up to school, and Abby visits her, and she's so small. She's lost a lot of weight, but it looks like she's pregnant, even though Abby just saw her, like, a handful of days ago, and it looks like she's about to burst. That's because there are tapeworms in her stomach, and they've been, like, consuming her body from the inside. Everything that she hasn't been eating, but anything she does eat, they've been consuming. But also they're kind of, like, eating her at the same time. And then there's a moment, I don't know exactly what, like, prompts it. Maybe it's, like, she kind of starts gagging because any food, like, makes her feel awful. Like, she can't even stand the smell of it anymore. Abby is just thinking that this is, like, side effects from, like, starving herself, or, like, only relying on these shakes. She brings her, like, this ice cream that they both really love, and she, like, shows her, and, like, Margaret is, like, about to gag, and so I think, like, maybe that sort of triggers it. And what starts to happen is that the tapeworm, one of them, because there are multiple, it tells you there was, like, a certain number, there's, like, at least tens. There's tens of them. There's tens of them in her stomach. And it starts to come up and out of her mouth. And then her dog grabs it and is like pulling it out. Honestly, it sounds awful, but I'm smiling because like, that's a great, that's a great time to read. What, like, it's great, I think, but also it sounds awful. So anyway, there's my favorite scene in my best friend's exorcism. And of course, in the end, Gretchen, the one who is possessed by a demon, is saved by her best friend, Abby. And I do wish there was maybe like a little, while I like that this like dealt with female friendship or just, friendship in general, there wasn't, it's not like a love interest came between them or something like that. Like, that gets really annoying very quickly. And it's just like too overdone. It's a demon. It's a demon that gets between them instead and is trying to isolate Gretchen so that he can like fully take over her body, essentially. And while I like that that's a big focus of the story, I also feel like too many of the chapters in the beginning were like clearly there just to try to convince you that these two girls are best friends. And I wish I like felt it a little bit more than being told, if that makes sense. Or like recognizing why those chapters in the beginning focused on like them growing up a little bit. Because that part's taken out of the movie, which I feel like also kind of makes the movie worse. My week with Marilyn is, oh gosh, I don't know where this is going. I don't know the publication like process behind this. So this is My Week with Marilyn, but also The Prince, the Showgirl, and Me. And The Prince, the Showgirl, and Me is Colin Clark's basically diary that he kept on the set of The Prince and the Showgirl, where he worked as Laurence Olivier's assistant. And there's one week that he didn't end up like writing in this diary that he kept because he was kind of like taking care of Marilyn more. And that's where you get this separate My Week with Marilyn. So this is a bind up of those two things. I don't know if The Prince, the Showgirl, and Me was published first and then later he published My Week with Marilyn, and now it's just like available in this sort of bind up. I don't know if he originally wanted them published together but separate as two separate things and not My Week with Marilyn like within the rest, because it continues. The production continued after that week, so it does happen in the midst of the overall production. And I just mentioned that because, there's a lot of, again, Marilyn is so exploited, and when people write memoirs that are about them but also about another person, obviously in this case Marilyn, it's kind of like, what is your reasoning behind publishing this? And I do feel like Colin Clark, or at least this book, kind of gets some flack because I think people automatically think that he was writing it or it was being published because it could make him money with Marilyn's name. To me, I think this is definitely a publication, though, that seems more in tune with just like sharing this experience that he had. Not necessarily thinking about money, but that is just my interpretation of having read this and only this. I think that he was just sharing this experience that he had and allowing other people to get a glimpse at Marilyn in moments that were only shared by the two of them. So, I didn't love it though, I will say that. I think it was very interesting, and especially in terms of like learning more about the production of The Prince and the Showgirl. I liked both parts. Not only My Week with Marilyn, but The Prince, the Showgirl, and Me was also interesting. Especially because he has like important or significant parents who like helped him get this job essentially. So I'm not exactly sure. Well, this has probably got to feel like saving your best friend, having these sort of intimate moments with Marilyn. That's like saving your best friend from a demon, right? being with Marilyn. And I say intimately, but I just mean like having real conversations with her. Saving your best friend from a demon. But I think yeah, okay. We're gonna put it here. My year of rest and relaxation. Oh, yes, okay. Literal shit in your museum exhibit. There we go. Here we are. It's not going in this tier, but that's the main character decides to take a shit at the museum that she works in well, it's like her last day. She's like leaving. She's like, I quit. This is not happening anymore. And she does that in an exhibit that is truly awful. So it's not even like art. Okay, well, art. I say that subjectively. It's like campy art almost, actually. Like, oh, wow, okay. I'm suddenly realizing how campy this movie could be. Or at least have campy elements. Although I do think the term camp and campy is kind of like being overused now. I don't know, something about like the last handful of years. It's a little too much. Not only being overused, but like incorrectly used also. But that definitely means that this should go in Saving Your Best Friend from a Demon. It's gonna go at the top. Because it is the one that I enjoyed the most. Probably would be the one that I enjoyed the most. I don't know, she does kind of have a fairy godmother with her her psychiatrist, her therapist, though. See, I liked this when I was reading it, and I like it now, but I think it's more so like discussion and hearing other people's thoughts that I like more, and almost like, I think now that I'm like a little bit removed from reading it, I don't feel as like disappointed as I was because it's been so hyped up, and I've known about it since before it was out, because I knew about Eileen, which is Ottessa Moshfegh's first novel. I knew about that when that was being released. And so like I've kept up with her releases even though I hadn't read any until this book. And suddenly this like blew up and people love it. And so I also think that it could be funnier if I like had a different mindset when I was reading it. That's where I'm going to put it. But definitely I'm really looking forward to an adaptation. I might actually like reread this like before an adaptation comes out, because I'm not exactly, no one's even been cast yet. What am I saying? Like, yeah, I'll probably reread it beforehand. I would like to get another kind of interpretation experience of reading it. Maybe I've at least gained perspective from already knowing the story now. Okay, Night Bitch is easily going at the top. This is my favorite book that I read this year. At least in terms of like a standalone, because obviously there's certain there's a certain series. Oh, oops. Oh my god, stop that right now. Oh my god, I don't like that it's doing that. There's obviously a series that I'm in the middle of that is just top tier no matter what. So in terms of something that it was completely new to me, a standalone thing, Night Bitch is it. I'm so looking forward to this adaptation. Oh my god. They were filming, and there were like some behind the scenes photos, but like only barely. I'm so excited for this. This also has to do with art though, in a different way than my year of rest and relaxation does. Because it's just that the main character, like, works at a museum for my rest and relaxation. My year of rest and relaxation. It's too long to say each time. But Night Bitch is actually about an artist who becomes a mother. And she is the parent who doesn't make as much money. So her dream, her career gets set aside while her husband continues to go into work. And she becomes a stay-at-home mom. Until her creative juices start flowing a little bit more as she becomes like obsessed with, well, like a few things. Just suddenly she's noticing different things about herself. And as she's looking into these changes, she discovers this book that has to do with like women and communities of women who turn into animals, depending on like their roles in their own society and like where they live and different things like that. And she becomes like obsessed with these other women in this book, and the author that she like kind of stalks, even though the author never replies. But then it's also that book, and of course her transforming into a dog. By the way, if you had no idea what Night Bitch is about, it's about a mother who turns into a dog, and she becomes so inspired and empowered by that, and she like turns it kind of like into an art show at the end of the book. And I'm so I think that's the part that I'm looking forward to the most, especially because it's like in front of these people that she's like sort of befriended in her community that she like kind of thinks also turns into dogs. Like, it's really good. Lots of social commentary that I thought was really well done, particularly, you know, pertaining to motherhood and art and artists as well a little bit. Obviously, I mentioned you can infer from the whole art being set aside, father being the breadwinner, continuing to work sort of thing, social commentary. Anyway, okay, Nimona is going and accidentally marrying your brother. No, is it saving your best friend from a demon? Actually, no, I don't know. I liked this, but Nimona is a really annoying character. I did not like her. They tried to make you like sympathize with her, and like, sure, I sympathize with you. I don't like you still. That's what happened. I really would like to see like a spin-off between the two guys, like with the two guys, the best friends, but also like kind of wish that they kind of should be more than best friends. I forget their names. Those were the characters that I liked the most. And I did not like Nimona, who was the main character. That's why I'm like, here or here. Or, no. Oh, this one's too difficult. I do like the art style, though. And the color palette is really nice. It has this good, like, blending of, like, medieval-looking aesthetics, but kind of also futuristic. Like, there's, like, technology, yet they're, like, fighting with swords. And they have, like, chainmail and different, like, that kind of armor. I don't know. Saving your best friend from a demon is, like, a little too fitting. Like, that's why I have to go with that tier. Because, like, powers and like, saving people are involved. Oh, yeah, by the way. Saving people are involved because Nimona wants to work for the evil guy, the bad guy, the villain. And she annoys him like crazy. But also, they kind of have to save each other. And save people in the village. Okay, also that's being adapted. It should be on Netflix, I'm pretty sure. Okay, Rest and Be Thankful. Okay, this one's going at the top of literal shit in your museum exhibit, because I also think this is like an interpretation thing or like in the moment situation where I thought it was going to be a little bit more speculative and it was more of like a metaphor and like how do I say this? Yeah, I thought it was going to be more speculative and because there's like this presence that the main character who is a doctor, she works in the baby department. What is the baby department? The baby department? Like a department store? Not a department. What? The baby? Oh my god, I'm literally gonna write baby department. Department. In hospital. I can't. Baby department. Intensive care. Neonate. Newborn? The newborn. The newborn. I don't know. She works there. That's her area in the hospital that she works in. And there's this like weird dark presence that she keeps noticing, and she'll notice it physically, and sometimes it feels like she's losing track of time a little bit, but also that like has to do with her working such long hours and having kind of a messed up schedule with her work. And so I thought this presence was going to be a lot more and like be something, but it was more of like a metaphor in a way. which I normally would really like, but I don't know, it just like didn't hit the way that I'm sure it would have hit for other people, basically. I just realized my phone battery is probably going to drain so much, and I'm like halfway freaking done. Let's hurry up, goodness gracious. Okay, we're skipping Vampire Academy stuff for now. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is easily like, yes. Oh, yes. Okay, it's actually going here, I think, just because like the language is so good. It's too bad we don't know who wrote this, because I really would like to know other things that they have written. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, that's what this being resurrected after being beheaded first sort of event plot thing of this top tier is from. Being resurrected after being beheaded, because in Sir Gawain and the spoiler, oh my god, wait, that's so spoiler, but it's so vague in terms of just like hearing me say those words that, or reading those words, that you're just like, oh, okay. If that makes sense. I also think I emphasized the vampirically flying into the sun too much, that you might have forgotten that technically there were two sort of titles for this category, two labels in one. So yes, being resurrected after being beheaded, because the Green Knight comes and says, you know, someone make the fatal blow, just do it. And Sir Gawain does it. And then the Green Knight picks up his own head and is like, in 1 year, you will receive the same thing, and you have to do it. And so, obviously, Sir Gawain, being the noble knight that he is trying to be, goes to the Green Church, finds the Green Knight. Wow, this is really, really summarizing. It's not about this, though. It's about the journey and the other things that happen, also. He goes to the Green Chapel. Not the Green Church. The Green Chapel, meets the Green Knight again, and is beheaded by the Green Knight. But the exact same thing happens. So good. Okay, 6 moral tales. This is definitely going into accidentally marrying your brother. It's gonna go here, because it's not like as fun as being there and Moll Flanders. But it has its moments. Also, some of the guys are just like the absolute worst in this, so this is a short story collection. It's hard to like think of each thing in particular. We're just summarizing. It's going here. Okay. The Age of Henry VIII. I think this is gonna go in saving your best friend from a demon, even though there are no winners in the Age of Henry VIII, because people get beheaded and die. We all know about Henry VIII, but I feel like this really gave me more knowledge and appreciation for all the people in history in general. Okay. Yeah, appreciation and knowledge for all the players, all the historical figures at this time. I feel like it was a very unbiased. Kodak, what are you doing? I just felt like this was really unbiased and giving an overview of each person, each main player at this time. Specifically, I'm really interested now in reading Utopia by Thomas More, because I feel like a lot of people think that it really is about a utopia, but in a way, the utopia is dystopia, because there's no such thing as a utopia. It can't exist. In its existence, it almost negates itself and will turn into a non-utopian society. Like, and utopian societies aren't functional. So it's like actually satirical, apparently, but wow, he's so distracting. I didn't like learn a whole lot in terms of like historical events, but I felt like I understood the people more, and where they came from also, particularly like the queens. The Children's Hour. I don't know where to put this, but we're skipping this one for now. The Crucible is at the top. I think I think I'm going to put it at the bottom of the vampirically flying into the sun tier, just because I feel like it's lost a bit of its oomph as time has gone on. Like, I am not, because it's been a year since I've read it, I'm pretty sure. Since I read it in January. Like, Sir Gawain and the Crucible. Wait, the Crucible was the first thing that I read last year. I think because it's been a while now, the information is not as there and I'm not, like, as into it. But it was truly a great way to start the year. And, but that's why I'm putting it at the bottom of the top tier. This is also something that I think would, like, benefit. I wish I, like, had read it in school, because just to gain more in terms of discussion and hear other people's thoughts and analysis. Also to just, like, oh man, it made me so frustrated. It really did. But in, like, a good way. In a way also that made me so appreciative of plays and the analysis that can be done on plays. Oh, interesting. Wait, that's so... It went the Children's Hour, The Crucible, and then The Elephant Man, and those are the 3 plays that I read. The Elephant Man is going in Accidentally Marrying Your Brother. Who knew that this would be... Who knew that I would consider this tier so much? It's hard to say. Maybe just, like, the middle. Because it's not, like, wild in the way that Moll Flanders or Being There is. But there's something about this that just, like, kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because similar to Being There, actually, this works out really well. This works out... Sorry, I think my battery is low on my mouse. People are just projecting themselves onto John Merrick. And that's, you know, similar to Chance in Being There. The thing about the... Actually, I think I'm just going to read my review. My Goodreads review. Alright, let's go here. Okay. Well, we'll come back to it. Where did I put it? Right here. It's here. We'll come back to it. Oh, okay. The Girl with the Golden Eyes. Definitely going and accidentally marrying your brother. Probably right... Ooh, am I gonna... Ooh, here, I think. Yeah. Between Being There and The Elephant Man. Yeah. It took too long. There we go. Okay, so this is what I said about The Elephant Man by Bernard Pomerantz, the play. Oh yeah, this was context. So I started this back in April when I was taking care of my cousin's dog when they were away for a few days, and I didn't finish it. I thought about borrowing it, but I knew I would want my own copy and annotate things that I had already read. 8 months later, and I finally got my own copy, started it over, and read it within a couple hours. While I think this is a moving play, I feel it lacking and thought of Merrick as a different font of the manic pixie dream girl. I don't know what Pomerantz's intentions were with this play, how much research he did, / how accurate this is to the real John Merrick, or if he was concerned, he being Pomerantz, or if Pomerantz was concerned / how much he was concerned with creating a character and imposing on the life and true character of the real person. But I felt a lack of insight into Joseph Merrick's feelings. I'm realizing that I go back and forth between calling him John and Joseph. But I felt a lack of insight into Joseph Merrick's feelings. The other characters were projecting onto him, which I understand is part of the point, and he almost felt like a side character with all the movement being done by the other characters. It kind of feels like one of those stories where the different person is treated terribly by others / society, but is a good person and a beautiful soul, and the main characters who help him learn a lesson from doing so, likely about their privileged lives, living to the fullest, following their dream, reflecting on the flaws and faults of society, etc. I don't know, maybe that's also part of the point. Also, I may have expected a little more because I've seen the 1980 film a couple times, and though it's been a while, there are certain scenes I thought would be in the play, but I think that's just me remembering things in the movie. Though I realize the movie, the David Lynch movie, is not an adaptation of this play. That is just based on real life information about Joseph Merrick. So, yeah, it felt lacking, and I thought of Merrick as a different font of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. And the whole, like, main characters, like, learning a lesson about themselves. Like, I don't know, it almost felt a little bit too much about the other side characters who were projecting onto them, like, specifically the Doctor. And it was seeing this play, there was, like, a performance done by a local college that my mom and one of my mom's friends and I went to, and it was great. And, like, I enjoyed it and think it's very interesting, but at the same time, it was kind of annoying. I recognized more with the performance how much it, like, the main character is very much the Doctor, and how much he's the one who's, like, learning a lesson. And it's like, okay, great, you realized how badly he's been treated, and how you've almost exploited him in a way, even though you think you're doing the right thing. I don't know, it was just, like, too much about him. And so that's why I, like, have kind of mixed feelings on it, because while I enjoyed it, while it was well done, it was a little bit, it wasn't enough about the actual Elephant Man. It was more about the lessons that he was sort of teaching the other people around him. So, The Graduate. I mean, honestly, Accidentally Marrying Your Brother works for this, because he's having an affair with his father's partner's wife, business partner's wife, and then he falls in love with her daughter. Is that where I'm actually gonna put? I don't know. I think I have to put it higher. Mostly a good time, but about it, no, that works. No, we're going highest. We're going highest. No, wait, shoot. No, it has to go in Saving Your Best Friend from a Demon. It does. That works. I was reading the wrong one. Okay, I think I am gonna put it lower than My Year of Rest and Relaxation, only because I do know that while I enjoyed this and while I liked this, it was funny. It was really funny. I don't really laugh during books, but this one was actually, like, making me laugh. Also, being there, it made me laugh. Sorry, I'm, like, trying to, like, speed this up. Oh my god. But I do think that I love the movie so much that I was kind of projecting the movie onto the book, even though it's more so, like, the movie is just a very good adaptation of the book. The Longest Journey. This one is going in literal shit in your museum exhibit, but it's going here. It's going second. Because, I'm so sorry, E.M. Forster, I just did not enjoy this that much. Which sucked, because the first, like, 50 pages or so, I was actually really enjoying. It's only 270-ish pages, I want to say. It's in the 200s, but more mid 200s. Yeah, I was really into it when it started, because it was like, ooh, campus. we're on a campus, and the characters are being introduced, and they're a little, they're a little pretentious, but, like, maybe a couple of the characters more so than the others. But then, honestly, the characters just I kept getting them mixed up. I can't even think of their names right now, but the main character has, like, a couple of friends that I just kept mixing up. Although, this definitely has, not in the same way, but has an Accidentally Marrying Your Brother kind of plot line, which I won't spoil. But it turns out that a character is connected to another character that previously we didn't realize. I think this is one that I, like, similar to Rest and Be Thankful and Burnt Offerings, I, like, appreciate more in hindsight, and now that I'm not, like, in the moment of reading it. I definitely should look up more, like, reviews and analysis or, like, thought videos on YouTube of people who have read this, because I think it's Ian Forster's least popular work, and I hope there are people who have, basically, I hope people have read it and talked about it on YouTube, because I actually want to, like, hear people's thoughts. The Pit and the Pendulum. This is going in Saving Your Best Friend from a Demon. Not only is it fitting because, like, the main character is saved, but it was a little different than I remembered, and a little less enjoyable. I think I like the Roger Corman film more, to be honest. But it's still, like, very atmospheric, so it's actually gonna go here. Because it's, is it? These are so different that it's hard to compare. Because I am, like, trying to rank them within the tiers. And I actually think I'm going to put it here closer to the bottom, just because it is a short story. Not only is the genre of it so different from all these books are so different from each other, but also it is a short story. The Power of the Dog. This one, oh man. So I thought about putting it in the top tier because part of my description of the tiers was the impact, was the power, the impact. That's what I wrote. Look, the best of the best, the most powerful, the most impact. It's called The Power of the Dog. And goddamn, that last, like the last paragraph, oh my god. I'll admit, I started this in like April or something stupid and finished it on the last day of the year. So it took me way too long to finish. I liked the writing. I'm working through where to put it. Okay, no, it's gonna go at the bottom of the top tier for now. Just because, yeah, that last paragraph, those last few sentences, I would, like, truly, I gasped out loud, like, very loudly, like, it was a little, I was like, like, it was literally like that. It was just me in my room. I think the one that, like, downfall to this is there's, like, a little bit too much backstory. Like, I wanted more, like, in the moment stuff. There's, like, a little bit too much backstory and, like, random things that happen in the main characters' childhoods that it kept talking about, and I don't feel like that added very much to the story. It did for, like, learning more about Rose and Peter, and, like, some things, yes, for George and Phil, but I think more so their family life, more so, like, how others... Yeah, there were definitely parts that should have been, like, taken out a little bit more, and then also I wanted more in the moment of this new sort of family. As well as it was, like, the last 70-ish pages, maybe? Because it was, like, around page 200, I think, that I was, like, really... I was, like, trying to finish it within a few days, and it started picking up. I don't know, maybe it was timing? Timing is always a factor in things. It was like the last 70 pages that it started picking up a little bit more, and like things started happening, and I think I wanted more of that, this like last third of the book, rather than other things that happened in the middle. Okay, the Stepford Wives, the impact. Okay, this is obviously the last tier here, ambiguously being replaced / altered against your will. That is a reference to the Stepford Wives by Ivy Levin. I think most people understand, like, the premise of the Stepford Wives, where something's weird with the wives in Stepford. It's also, I mean, my wording there is so specific, ambiguously, like, it's very open to... Okay, this is going in the top. It's going there. Oh my god, is it? Yeah. It doesn't really, like, it just ends and you're kind of like, wait, so what exactly happened? It just, you can make that assumption, you can presume whether or not the main character was altered, replaced, whatever it is. They don't really get to it. They don't really tell you what's happening to the women, to the mothers, to the wives. You don't really get an answer. But I love that, because this is the book that I was talking about where it was like mid, it was like 3 out of 5 stars. I kind of had, not necessarily like had higher expectations, but I wanted more from it. And then I just kept thinking about it. And then I watched the 75 adaptation. That is so good. It adds a little bit more to the end, which I thought was very well done. It fleshes out the story really well. Very good. And I also like the 2004 adaptation. I actually do really like that one, okay? I gave them, I think, both the same rating of like 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. The only thing, maybe I didn't. Maybe I gave the other, I don't know. See, it's enjoyable. It's definitely campy. Go into the 2004 Stepford Wives knowing it's campy. The only thing I don't like about it is like another part of the end that they add, that they change. And I'm like, what is this? You're completely undermining like the messages of the story. Like, that is, you're undermining the point of the story. What are you doing? Why'd they do that? I don't understand. Yes, the vampire Armand. I mean, obviously this has to go. Armand is the vampire who, he's a vampire, so he vampirically flies into the sun and then heals because he's old and powerful. And he also drank Lestat's blood at the end of Memnoch the Devil that we don't find out about until this book. Lestat had gone into the past and drank Jesus' blood. Yeah, he did that. And then Armand drank Lestat's blood. Anyway, he heals. He does heal. And that's a big win. That's a big win. Okay, drinking Lestat's blood infused with Jesus's blood, then he decides to unalive him. Well, he's already unalive. Unalive him? Well, he can't. He wants to permanently be dead. There we go. Because he has seen Jesus. Oh yeah, in the Vampire Chronicles, like, when they ingest people's blood, they, like, have visions of their life. They, like, consume the essence of the person, which is one of the reasons why it is their, like, high, it is their orgasm, in a way, that this is they're not, like, sexual beings. Their sexuality is expressed through this, like, bloodlust. Was that phrased all right? Yeah, a major win for Armand, okay? All of that, not actually permanently dying. I mean, it took him a while to heal, but it's fine because he's not permanently dead. So this is, it's Heartstopper is too different to have here. I don't know where to put it. Maybe I should just put it right in between. Yeah, okay. I'm putting it in between the two Heartstopper volumes just because I feel like it's on par with Heartstopper in the way that Heartstopper I read, like, all at once, and it's just, like, I love it so much, and it's so heartwarming, but also, like, sad and, like, beautiful, and, like, all, just so many emotions. That's also kind of, that's kind of also the Vampire Armand, but mostly, like, I just loved being back in this world again because I was a dummy and literally put this off until the end of the year. Like, I read Pandora in 2021, and then I didn't start the Vampire Armand until December, or it was November. It was November, I think. In any case, I finished it in December, and that's absolutely ridiculous, reading a majority of it in the last month of the year. So it was great to be back in the world, to have a little bit more context with, like, things that we kind of knew about, but now we were able to fully understand and get insight into, especially with, like, Armand's perspective, because we've never, obviously this is the first time that we're seeing things that he's telling his story. Oh, this one, Bottom, The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox. This actually, like, really isn't that bad, but it is my least favorite book of the year. I just really didn't like this. I don't know what was happening. Maybe the audiobook wasn't great to listen to. Maybe I should have read it physically. I don't know. It also kind of makes sense because Esme is a character who, she's, like, put in this facility against her will, and that is similar to being replaced or altered against your will, I guess. That's my parallel there. I just was, like, kind of confused with the premise in this. And it was sad at the end. I don't know. I just did not enjoy this the way I wanted to, basically. Or that I wish I had. It's going at the bottom, okay? Okay, Vathek. Definitely going in Accidentally Marrying Your Brother. It's gonna go... Oh, I forgot to talk... Okay, it's gonna go... Yeah. Okay, it's gonna go here. We're going with it. I forgot to talk about, the girl with the golden eyes, because I was waiting for the Elephant Man, that page to load. The girl with the golden eyes, so intriguing. I put it here because the main character, like, falls in love with this girl with golden eyes, but then he finds out that she's, like, also being intimate with this woman, and then just, like, goes on a rampage. So, it lost me there, but the prologue? Yeah, okay, the prologue talks about this, like, I don't know, group of men. I can't think of what they call... Oh my gosh, let's look at my review. This is my review of it. I was absolutely into... is part of that, by the way. I mean, you can see it. I was absolutely into the writing of this, minus the racist remarks. So, there's that. And the philosophical adjacent first part of the book. The imagery is fantastic. The first page of the first part knocked me back. It was a lot. Oh, this is how we're starting? Let me take a moment to prepare myself. But the story lacked and almost felt like it was a snippet of a larger story. I'm kind of hoping there's more about these 13 men who call themselves the Devourers in other Balzac works. What exactly is that all about? The prologue opened up with this almost mystical, fantastical depiction of this group of men, and the back of this edition says, and then revealed herself as captive to the most grotesque perversion known to human flesh. But, like, where was all of that in the story? A little too dramatic there. Hyperbolic, because what a letdown. Still interesting, but most grotesque perversion known to human flesh, where? I guess that's, like, homosexuality? So that's like womp womp womp, you know? Immoral, but not the worst. Which also refers to Vathek. That's a good segue. I have mixed feelings on Vathek because while the imagery was fantastic, this would make such a beautiful production, like physically, like visually. Is this racist? Like, I literally don't know. Because what's his name again? William Beckford, the author, like, I read biographical information about him. He really seemed to be a scholar and have actual appreciation and respect for the Orient and Oriental cultures. I'm saying that for context of, like, when this was written. That's what I mean by using Orient and Oriental. But I don't know how well this has aged necessarily, because it's written by a white guy who is also very... Oh man, his biography is very strange. I can't get into it. Just look him up, okay? And what was I gonna say? I'm losing steam here, people. I don't know where I was going, but I do think that this has a sort of fairy tale, mythical tale-like quality to it. Okay, it's about, like, oh my gosh, what are these words that I'm forgetting? I definitely did not have... There's a word. Caliph. Caliph, right? That's how you pronounce it? The Caliph Vathek. And there's this thing. Also, it's very influential, apparently. Like it literally says here. Oh my... Wait, this is a great description. One of the strangest and most unforgettable 18th century novels, Vathek is a wild Gothic fantasy whose sensuous imagination and grotesque comedy have inspired writers from Byron to Lovecraft. Yes, I see that. Yes. Good description. The Gower, that's what it is. Yes. Oh, okay. Also, like, the diction. I don't know. There are certain words that are very, like, ornate that I really love. Mm-hmm. And those are the kind of words that were used in this. Anyway, the Gower, it seems like a mythical creature in a way. Or, like, person who can, like, shapeshift. That's what it seems like. We have a few easy ones here. Vittorio is gonna go in... I don't know. I have mixed feelings on this one, so it's gonna go in marrying your brother. And I definitely... Oh, I think it's gonna go here. See, these ones are at least, like, kind of... are a scale of, like, certain themes. And then these ones are just kind of different. So I'm gonna put it here, I guess. Vittorio, I think it's good for, like, the standalone vampiric story that it is, but it is kind of annoying because it doesn't have anything to do with anything in the Vampire Chronicles. And I didn't find myself particularly attached to Vittorio or the other characters. I think the thing that I like the most about it is this sort of secluded setting where it almost made it seem like it was taking place even further back than it actually was. It's in the Renaissance era, where the Medici family is very prominent and sort of reigning Florence. Vittorio, like, goes to this village, and it almost seems like secretly run by the vampires. I don't know, it just had, like, a more, like, older feeling to it that I appreciated and liked because of how I mean, even for the ones that, I don't know, it just was like a different feeling for the setting, I guess. A lot more like rural also. So that's where it's going. Okay, weird fucks. I didn't love this. I think I'm actually going to put it at the bottom. Is this the other? I think I gave this 3 out of 5 stars because it'll be at the top. Because even though there are parts of this that I think can be interpreted differently, or like, what am I saying? Energy level, kaput. Brain, like, not working. Even though I think that people can get different things out of this, and it's vignette-like, where you are following, like, one character, but one chapter isn't really flowing into the next one. There's not really connection in that way. Maybe, like, some characters from previous chapters are mentioned in future ones, but not a lot. And also, like, there's so much spacing. There's very little text overall. The number 60 is, like, standing out. Yeah, 108. Okay, yeah, so then it was, like, closer to 60 pages of actual text. I didn't really get anything out of it, but I did kind of enjoy it. Just as with, like, The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox, like, it seemed like if I had read this at a different time, maybe if the writing was also, like, a little different, I would have enjoyed it more. Esme Lennox is also, like, historical fiction, and I really love historical fiction. Weird Fucks was, like, vignette-like stories, chapters, different things, fucks, relationships that the main character was having with guys. And I liked that overall as a premise, but it just lacked depth. Like, I wanted more to it. I just don't think, like, certain short stories, novellas, like, they really have to make use of the its limit, I guess. And this felt limited, or just, like, not explored enough. And I definitely want to know other people's thoughts on this. I don't really know anybody who has read it, but it is interesting. I mean, granted, you're not going to put, like, a negative quote on it, but the quotes on this, or, like, surrounding it, I wonder, is it here? Somewhere there are quotes. Also, weird fucks where? I didn't, disturbing fucks, like, maybe. I mean, I guess it depends on what you like. But I really thought that this would be wild, and it wasn't at all. It started out okay, but I liked it more as it went on. I'm not familiar with Lynn Tillman, but I'd be interested in reading something less vignette-like, or at least fuller. Long stories, a novella, novel, whatever. Yeah, like, the chapters were so short in themselves, so even if they were connected more, if it felt more like a longer short story or a novella. Where are the quotes? The quotes on the back of it were like, Lynn Tillman has done it again. And I'm like, what? First of all, I've never even heard of her. But also, what do you mean has done it again? All right, woman eating, going to the top. It's, going second. While I like, the language of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, like, really stands out to me. It's an epic poem, so, like, obviously that's a way that it's gonna stand out and be, like, a favorite. But woman eating, I filmed a vlog. I was trying to read, like, a certain number of books within a shorter period of time, and this is one of the books that I read. I think I talked about this book for, like, an hour and a half after I finished it, and that prompted me to, like, I didn't even edit the vlog. Like, I was making a vlog out of this sort of reading challenge I was making for myself. And I just have the footage on my phone still. I hope I transferred it to my computer at least. I did not do anything because I had so many clips, and then also, I just ended up talking about woman eating for an hour and a half. Another book that involves something kind of strange happening to a main character, and lots of social commentary, just like Night Bitch. And I think this one... It's a vampire story, but I wouldn't go into it too much, like, with that notion. Like, the main character is a vampire, and that is just a trait of the main character. I feel like that's the way that you should go into it, rather than thinking of it being, like, a vampire story. I do want to eventually post that vlog, by the way, but I'm gonna have to edit it. Alright, women talking here. Definitely, because... the impact, so incredibly frustrating. Oh my god. It's one of those things where you're like, this is unreal. I can't believe this happened. I think something that I'm very excited. Excited maybe isn't the right word, but I'm very interested in seeing what the movie adaptation is like. I've heard, like, honestly, nothing but great things except for the color grading. People hate the color grading, and that's the only negative thing that I've seen about it. Except I've heard other people mention complaints that they've heard. The main one, besides color grading, being that it feels like a play, that it's like a play. And it's like, it's literally called Women Talking. Also, plays are made into movies all the time. How is that like a critique of it? Is that it's like a play? Okay, so then just pretend it's a play? Like, I don't understand how that's like a negative thing when clearly that a person is meaning it in a negative way. Oh, I was gonna say that I'm really curious how they're gonna set up the colony. Wow, I have a headache. I haven't been drinking enough water during this time. I'm really curious how they're gonna set up the colony, because I think it's really easy to, especially like if you're watching a movie and you're seeing the costumes that the clothes that the characters are wearing, it looks like it's not modern, but it is. It is in this century that this story takes place and took place, that actually happened, like real events. I'm interested in seeing if it almost sets it up in a way where you think, as a viewer, you think that you're watching a period piece, and then suddenly, like, the truck comes in who's doing, like, the guys who are doing the census. And you're like, oh, there's a car. Okay, so there's cars. Okay. And then, maybe something else where they mention the actual year. I think that sort of setup can be really significant, though, because it almost is easy to read in the way of, like, thinking that things like this don't, like, how could this happen? Like, you would think that only, I don't know. But I probably explained it so much better in my actual review. My brain isn't working, okay? Apparently I'm just gonna go to my reviews now. This book is really good and incredibly frustrating. Most of this review is thoughts I wrote down mid-book. Oh yeah. Obviously it's based on inspired by true events, so I'm not exactly sure how to phrase this, but I think it's good that this takes place within such a self-ostracized community. I can imagine those in broad... Oh yes! Obviously I'm agreeing with my own review. I can imagine those in broad/general society, first world countries who live 21st century lives, thinking of and viewing such communities as lesser than because they don't use technology, because they don't use electricity, because they live their lives based on traditions and values that may seem more old-timey or archaic to our modern sensibilities and views. Yet, everything that is discussed in this book, what these women and girls have gone through, happen in that society too. This modern society. It also happens in every society. How incredibly sad is that? It seems like we're not so modern if that sort of thing is still happening, in my opinion. Supposedly progressive, developed, etc., there is still abuse, assault, rape, and people ultimately get away with it because they are men, because they are so-called pillars of the community, because they claim power, because they are rich, etc. Sometimes I had to remind myself I wasn't reading something historical. It doesn't take place in decades or centuries past. These events were going on only a little more than a decade ago, and to the point of the upcoming adaptation, in the same sense I'm hoping the almost present setting is practically erased, causing viewers to momentarily forget they're not watching a period piece or historical drama. And then they're like, oh wait. I like that within the first quarter of the book, Miriam Toews is slowly revealing things and outcomes/aftermath of what has happened. Yes, that was a big thing. I was glad it wasn't like super info dumpy. It also just would have, because each atrocity adds to this anguish and sadness when you're reading. I'm really curious also how like the children will be, specifically like Meep. Is that her name? M-I-E-P? I don't know how to... Meep? Meep? I want to say Meep. There's spoilers here. So, I'm just gonna stop there. You may have read part of that. Sorry, there are spoilers though. Meep is like an infant, by the way. Alright, so now we have the Children's Hour in the Vampire Academy series. Going through it, but worth it. That is the description for why we're putting this in Saving Your Best Friend from a Demon. And we're going to put it, I don't know, these are all two different, it's really hard to compare books now that I'm doing this. I think I'm going to put it here. I liked it. I thought it was well done. Sad. I don't think it had the same impact, as it could have had because I had already seen the movie. 1961. Wait, I think it actually is the same year as Breakfast at Tiffany's. I think I would have liked this more had I not already known the story and knew what was going to happen. Plays are underrated. Okay. And Vampire Academy. Alright, well, I do think, I don't remember exactly now what I was thinking, but, like, specifically, but somehow I came to the conclusion that Shadowkiss was my favorite in the series. So we're putting this at the top and we're going to put it here, I think. Because Heartstopper's already here, so I'm okay. I'm alright with splitting up the two volumes. To showcase that these are kind of like all on the same level, especially with them being series. Wow! Look at how many are in this top tier! That's so good! Wait. That's so good. Okay. So, somehow I came to the conclusion that Shadowkiss is my favorite. But I'm having like such a hard time with differentiating the books. I know the first one pretty well. It's the second two that kind of I get mixed up. Oh, yes. Okay. No. Because Shadowkiss has to do with things. I don't want to go into spoilers. So, something happens at the end of the second book. I think actually Frostbite is my least favorite. Yes. Okay, I think I'm splitting these up. I'm going to put Frostbite in Saving Your Best Friend from a Demon. No, wait, I don't remember. Shoot. I just had a flashback of me saying that I liked this more than Vampire Academy. The first book. Also, it would be a little ironic to put this in Saving Your Best Friend from a Demon, unfortunately. Okay, I'm gonna put, I think, both of, I don't know where yet, but both Vampire Academy and Frostbite are going in this second tier of having a fairy godmother. I really need to brush up on the specific books. I can remember things that happen, but like, everything is kind of a blur also at the same time. It's all just merging together. Actually, I think I'm going to do that. Or I'm going to do this. I don't know why. I did not like, I think the third volume of Heartstopper is easily my least favorite. I still very much liked it, but I don't know, there was something about it that I just didn't like as much. I think maybe because it deals more with something that Charlie is going through, and that storyline, I guess, just isn't as appealing. I don't know, appealing is not the right word, but I just preferred reading the other volumes, essentially. So I'm going to put both Vampire Academy books like in between the two Heartstopper volumes here, and Shadowkiss is going up here between the Vampire Armand and Heartstopper Volume 4. So there's something that happens at the end of Frostbite that really impacts what happens in Shadowkiss, and honestly, it gets so... really, this series is quite dark. I think there are things that happen that is a lot for these characters to go through, and they're just kind of expected to just be okay with things, almost. Rose, the main character, is different because she is Shadowkissed, which is spoilery. Oh my god. Okay, well, she's Shadowkissed, which is very rare, and this... Okay, well, it has to do... This more so has to do with Rose being Shadowkissed and her abilities and how she's different, basically. But not in the same realm of, like, I'm not like the other girls. Like, truly, she has had things happen to her that has affected her abilities and powers as a Dampier and as a guardian in training to Lissa. We also get more Adrian in this one and like learn more about him a bit. Adrian has become like one of my favorite characters. Oh, though, okay. The only thing is, I don't really like the ending of Shadowkiss that much. I like certain elements in Shadowkiss the most. And I like learning more about this history. Oh my god, wait, maybe that's why I liked Frostbite more than Vampire Academy, because we're learning a little bit more. I think that one deals with more with like learning about Saint Vladimir. And I love that kind of like learning about the past, learning about history situation in books, especially when it's like fantasy. There are elements of Shadowkiss that I prefer over elements in Frostbite and Vampire Academy that are like focused on. However, there is something that I don't like about Shadowkiss that happens between a couple of the characters. I don't like it, and it's something I feel like is the kind of thing that I don't like because I'm an adult and because it's something that hasn't aged very well. I won't tell you what that is, but if you're familiar with the premise of Vampire Academy, then you probably know, or know to an extent. And the ending, something happens at the very end of this that I was like, wait, what is happening? Is this actually happening? Is this true? And granted, I haven't started the next book, so I don't actually know for sure if things are what they seem. But I'm thinking that things are what they seem. Otherwise, the last like chapter or so, or two, I guess, of Shadowkiss will kind of be for naught. It'd be like, oh, well, those don't really mean as much anymore because the thing that we thought was true isn't actually true. I'm hoping that it is actually true because that is honestly, I mean, I haven't actually read that many like YA series or like fantasy series. But that's commitment. That is a change. I'm very curious what is going to happen. However, there's also something at the very, very end that I didn't like because I'm afraid that it sort of changed that it has changed the trajectory of the series. Because it seems like Rose is like now on this other mission, and I don't really like this other mission. I want to know what's happening with like all the characters and the politics of the world, and I'm hoping that it doesn't like completely switch gears and like focus on this thing that Rose is set to do. Wow, that was too much. Look at can you tell I'm tired? We're moving on though. I'm done with this. Here's my tier list. Thank you for listening to me ramble and question these books in various ways. In some ways being, wait, what happened in this book? Wait, what is this again? Wait, what was that character's name? And this is why I should have a reading journal or something. I want to know what book intrigued you the most. What book intrigued you the most in the way that you're like, I might read that. Or I'm curious to read that. But also, which one intrigued you the most in terms of like having lots of questions? You're maybe you don't want to read it, but you're like, huh? What? What does that mean? Things like that. Okay, thank you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.